you to ask to do a short introduction to Sag Harbor, if that's possible, your last book.
Sure. Sag Harbor takes place in the 1980s in Long Island, and it's about a group of kids who grow up in New York City and go out to the resort town of Sag Harbor in the Hamptons every summer. Their parents work during the week in the city and only come out on weekends. So Monday through Friday, they're left to their own devices, and they're nerds. So they don't get into too much trouble, but they do find ways to struggle a bit in the book. It takes place over the course of the summer, and the main character Benji is 15, and he's trying to find his way in the world. Well, yeah, it drew from my own experience, and a lot of writers do that. I just sort of was more upfront about it. I don't. As a teenager, I wasn't as sort of clever or funny or together as Benji is, and he's sort of a mess. I didn't do a lot of the things that happened in the book, but I did grow up in Sag Harbor in the summers and do some of the things. I had similar friends, but there's no sort of direct one-to-one correlation between me and him. I thought I would base a lot more of the book on things that happened in my life. But as I was writing it, all the characters and all their actions were subordinate to the higher aims and the higher themes of the book. And so very quickly it became not so much about people I knew or things I did. It became about what these characters had to do in order to serve the story and not serve reality.
You go back to Sag Harbor regularly, so it's really close to you?
Yeah, my parents moved out there about 22 years ago, so I would go out for Christmas or some holidays. And then about 10 years ago I started going for weeks at a time, renting my aunt's house. And that's when I became reacquainted with the place. And about 6 years ago I came up with the plan to write about it.
Your novels in general, you were nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. So would you say this is really something you expected, something you worked for, something?
I just really didn't expect, all the nice things that came my way. If you write about weird black people, you're always surprised when books get published. If you write a book about elevator inspectors, you're very astonished that it will get published. So, I've been very fortunate that early on editors understood my work and that people liked it enough to buy them and come out to readings and support them. So, I want to be a writer since I was 8 or 9. I didn't like going outside, playing outdoors. I like watching TV and reading Stephen King. So being a writer seemed like a job where you could just hang around the house and make up stuff. So I've been very fortunate that I can do that now.
How does it feel to come here to Germany and present your book here? Is it different?
Well, yeah, it's miserable writing these things, and so you're always astonished when you live to see the end of them. And then, 2 years later to have people bring you to a different country to talk about the book and introduce it in a different way to folks who aren't necessarily acquainted with Sag Harbor and how things sort of work. It's really just fun and delightful, and I'm still astonished. Frankly, it's all just weird and a lot of fun the way things have turned out.
A few weeks earlier, the Coca-Cola company had discontinued their signature cola. They lost market share to Pepsi. Diet Coke, their sister brand, had been too successful, luring away consumers with the promise of thinner thighs, a figure more in line with that aerobicized you. The higher-ups hit upon a catastrophic solution. They decided to replace the most famous drink in the world with an imposter. I had been addicted to Coke for years with a 2 or 3 can-a-day habit since the 5th grade. I was susceptible then when I went to Karen's kitchen and someone opened a cabinet next to the sink and I saw a flash of red. Obscured by the cabinet door, I wrapped a 6-pack in my jacket and pulled the next 6-pack forward so that it appeared as if nothing was amiss. My crime might not be noticed for days. I stood, no one had noticed me. I walked very naturally out into the living room, My plan was to stash the goods in a safe area in the coat room and exit calmly with the stuff at the end of the party. The living room was quiet, the talking room as opposed to the dancing room, Karen's bedroom, where the music was cranked up. Which is what made the crash that much more loud. In my nervousness, I had clumsily wrapped a six-pack, and when I adjusted it as I walked across the room, the cans slipped out in a slow motion that is the speed of humiliation. They clattered against the hardwood floors. Everyone looked over, but my crime was so inexplicable that outsiders could not comprehend what had just happened. They returned to their conversations as I picked up the six-pack. All of them except for our host, Karen. She looked into my face and shook her head ever so slightly in sad assessment. She took the coat from my hands and said, "I think you should go now."
So the question was about the term post-racial, and a lot of reviews of Sag Harbor. Since it came out a year after Obama's election, they mentioned post-racial authors, post-racial society. So the questioner wanted to know what it means to me. What does it mean for literature? The term means nothing to me. Obviously, we're not in a post-racial society. If we were, no one would ask, what does post-racial mean? Because we know.
Question which is quite close to it. I wrote down one reviewer who said about Sag Harbor, of course, that story is ultimately as affecting a treatise on race and inheritance as Barack Obama's Dreams from My Father, but with all respect to our president, this book is a lot funnier. I had wanted to put this quote on our German edition, and I was forbidden to do so because we had published the book by Obama. That was the main reason. But anyway, do you think, now with all due respect to your president, that your book is following a kind of classical African-American memoir, as some reviewers have thought?
I haven't actually read a lot of African-American memoirs, so perhaps it is accidentally. Perhaps there are generic tropes that follow in the genre. For me, it's not about a black teenager growing up. It's about being a teenager. So you can be a complete freak and obsess about old formula Coca-Cola and be of any race. What's there is your essential freakdom, not the color of your skin. So while the story is about a specific time, a place, a black resort town in the Hamptons, it's really about hopefully addressing the universal complaints, struggles, strivings for identity formation that we all go through, whether you're born here or born there. If the book succeeds, it succeeds because there are multiple places of overlap between you and Benji. And if you don't identify with the crappy minimum wage job, perhaps the first kiss chapter, or when they're trying to sneak into the club when they're underage, a hip-hop club in this book, a punk club perhaps in your experience. But it's really about a more universal horribleness, self-loathing, and discovery of self, which I assume I'm not the only one who experienced some degree of those things.